I actually want to do the pronoun one.
Okay.
Is it loving to use preferred pronouns? You say no. Why
say
do you
no.
say that? Tell me.
Yeah, so I don't think it's loving to use preferred pronouns. I think using preferred,
What do you mean loving?
Willing the other's good.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, so I don't think it's willing someone's good to deceive them or affirm things that they believe about themselves that are false.
Okay. So how can a belief be false?
If a man believes he's a woman, that's false.
So how is that false? Like how? Like what about gender? Like a pronoun is a word. So how can that be false if you want to be called a man?
How can it be false if you want to be called a man?
Yes.
Well, if you're not a man and you want to be called a man and someone calls you the opposite sex, then that's false.
So, okay. So I disagree with you. And again, I told you my bias. I'm a psychology. Did I tell you I'm in psychology?
Yeah.
Okay, so I already told you my bias, and I'm sure are you religious?
I'm Christian, yeah.
Okay, so again, that's your bias, and I don't think you'll ever be able to. I think it's really privileged to say that because you'll never understand what it feels like to feel like that, to feel, different. And also, what's the word? I'm not like transgender. What's the word? I'm
Cisgender.
Yeah, I'm cisgender. I should know that. Anyways, I'm cisgender again, but still, like, I think it comes from a really, privileged viewpoint to say how love is defined, how it can be to love somebody, and also because you'll likely don't or won't know how that feels to be a different gender, because to me, okay, biological gender is one thing, but the workings of your brain could be so incredibly different. You could be more feminine, more masculine. I think these polarized male, female, I think there's everything in between as well. And it's okay to feel different about that. Now, when you say loving, is it loving to call somebody, quote unquote, the opposite of what they biologically are? Well, I'm assuming because you say that's, creating a falsehood, something that, harms them in the future, harms their life. And I assume it's not, by your standards, it's not morally good to, bolster a
False belief.
A false belief, yeah. So talk about that. I suppose.
Yeah. So essentially, my position is I think that we should have loving honesty towards others when they hold a false belief about themselves, because all of us are going to have false beliefs we hold about ourselves at one point or another. How consequential that is will depend on the belief.
Mm-hmm.
So a good example is, imagine if I was an alcoholic, a drunkard, and I roamed the earth just drunk constantly, but I identified myself as sober, viewed myself as sober, and made sure that everyone around me addressed me as sober. When I make decisions that are consistent with that false belief, such as getting behind the wheel of a car, I endanger myself and those around me.
Okay.
And an individual who's transgender, for example, a man who believes that he is a woman, when he gets his false belief affirmed by those around him, he's going to make decisions consistent with that. Such as, for example, if he believes he's a woman, women don't have penises, and he might cut his off, which is a negative outcome.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. That's a negative outcome.
Yeah.
That is something I can't agree with. But I don't think being a alcoholic is comparable to being an individual who is transgender.
Just real quick, the comparison is how we want others to respond when we hold false beliefs about ourselves.
I agree. Okay, and thank you for clarifying that, because I don't want to paint you out as somebody.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Like, amoral, or whatever.
You're good.
But still, on that, again, I can go back to the alcoholic comparison. Even I don't think like you mentioned it as deeply as you did, maybe, but I'll still want to go back to it.
Go for it.
I just think you're like, I don't know. Even though you say it's damaging to be an individual who's transgender, I just don't know how you could say that, because I just don't think that's true, to be honest. I don't think people are cutting off their penises. The surgeries they are doing is irreversible, obviously.
Yeah.
And they, I'm assuming they might regret it later or something that's an issue. I just don't think in the position you're in you can look at it as a good thing ever, because it is okay to be transgender, and it's a good thing that people can feel good about being transgender. It's different than being alcoholic, some other affliction, an actual affliction, because being an alcoholic is, never good. It's ultimately negative. But I don't see how it can be negative to just feel like yourself. And with the use of using somebody's pronouns, it's just basic respect, which is something that you would, I'm sure, agree with in other situations. It's just that for some reason the situation of respect in regards to gender is different to you because it's bound in something that is like different, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't really think it's respectful to unconditionally affirm people's false beliefs about themselves. Just a quick question, though. Would you apply the use of preferred pronouns to children as well who identify as trans?
Okay, again, because that's an even more fun question. That's a really fun question. Okay. Um, okay, that's one I actually have to think about because everything's different when it's talking about minors. And yeah, so thank you. Okay, let's talk about that now. That's a great
Okay,
question.
can I actually give you some data before you answer? 'Cause
Please
it
do.
might impact how you want to answer this.
It probably will, actually.
Okay, so there was a study that looked at minors who identified as trans and how persistent that identity was over time. So there was one that looked at, I think, around 120 children who socially transitioned before age 6. So on average, age 4.3. And then on average, about 5 years later, 90% of them still identified as trans,
Yeah.
4% identified as non-binary, and only 6% desisted to a cisgender identity. And this would be about when they're around 9 years old. So first transition at 4, and then on average, at about 9 years old, 90% still identify as binary trans. To me, what that would indicate is that social transition, I'll let that go.
Yeah, it's funny. Okay.
Yeah, so to me, what that would indicate is that social transition isn't a neutral intervention. Because if it was neutral, I don't think we'd be seeing 90% of them still being binary trans at age average of 9.
Okay, so thank you for saying that. And I mean, even regardless of the data you gave me, which is, I'm glad you informed me on that. I think my viewpoint would still remain, which is different from what I just gave you before. Because yeah, I think with children, that's not okay. I know a lot of a point is, oh well, hormone blockers, things like that, they must be done when you're developing, but also what is developing is your brain, obviously, and you can't make those. I mean, you can try and make those decisions, think but there's a lot of confusion when it comes to being a minor, and I think that it's it's very easy to be influenced when you're of age like that, and I'm sure it's something you think, that's something I'm sure you think of a lot is, people being influenced to be transgender. Okay, so yeah, that's
we're all influenced by the society around us, children and adults.
Of course, yeah, and I would agree with that. Obviously, more so children. And so yeah, I think it's not. What was the question? It's not good. Is there like moral?
Yeah, is it loving to use preferred pronouns? In regards to children, what would you say exactly? Like loving or unloving to use preferred pronouns?
So I'll use the word loving because you use that, and I'll still use it in the context of loving. As a parent, as an individual, somebody that's close to, these children, I'll use the word children, it might seem like it's loving. So yeah, okay, I can say the word loving because you're doing something that's out of love to, use the right pronoun. But truly, deeply, the actual term of loving that you say as in, as if it's bolstering
willing the other's good.
Yeah, net good in this individual. I think not.
Okay.
I think it's amoral, and I think, I don't think it's good. So
okay, so just a quick follow-up on that. If it's immoral to use a child's preferred pronouns because it could reinforce a false belief that they have about themselves, wouldn't that equally apply to adults?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No. I don't think so at all. And
feel free to let me know if you gotta go, by the way. I know you.
Yeah, I'll continue. I think it's different when it comes to adults because that's the thing about being an adult in America. You could do and be whatever you want to be, and that's the whole thing about America, right? Which is what you love about America, right? Is it's the land of, being free or whatever. That doesn't mean you're free to be an alcoholic. It does mean you're free to be an individual who's transgender.
But how should we address those individuals, though? Because I think that we should practice loving honesty rather than unconditional affirmation.
Yeah. And so I think you should, and with this honesty, I think you should flip around, and I think you should be like, honestly, wow, I'm so happy for you for finding yourself. Maybe that's some loving honesty. Wow, I'm so glad that you are able to actually not feel this repression that a lot of individuals feel and aren't okay to come out. And again, not you specifically, but it's a common thing with organized religion, Christianity specifically. I believe it's not, it's something preached to not okay to be transgender, and I think that is, again, through your terms, by your words, that is not, how can that be loving if you're telling people to cease how they truly feel, to and if anything, like, this whole viewpoint you have where, oh, well, you're letting them, fall into this false belief. Well, is it, again, it could be flipped around completely opposite and say, oh, well, if you're telling somebody who truly, not biologically is a male, they feel, biologically is a male, they feel female, and that's not a lie to say that. It's not a lie to say they are biologically a male. But you can't say something is a lie if that's how they feel. If they feel to be a woman, and if they felt this their whole life, and just, psychologically in their brain, they just feel like a female. I mean, I don't know. That's
Quick question.
Okay.
So if you had a person who was perfectly healthy,
Yes.
but identified as someone who had cancer
Yeah.
and felt like they had cancer,
Yeah.
would you want to affirm that? Because if you affirm that, they might go on the black market and try to get chemotherapy,
Of course.
causing irreversible fertility loss.
Yeah, and so about that, and again, you say fertility loss. I know where this question is, intrinsic to, because it seems like your main issue is that these individuals are doing this irreparable harm to their body that they're going to regret or that they're going to change later, and so again, that's the thing. Because even though I'm saying, oh, it's good to be transgender, it's good to give these individuals the pronouns that they want, I also do still agree with you that it's a confusing thing to feel this way, and sometimes maybe people regret it, and I don't disagree with you. Again, even though I'm saying all these things about love and about how good it is to use pronouns, I still agree with you that it is something that is a tricky subject, because people do regret it, people do mutilate themselves, people do these things, and that's harmful, but these are cases, and I think regardless of, the case of, I don't know the statistics, I'll say 1 in 5, 1 in 10 individuals who regret it, who truly mutilate themselves and change their mind. I think regardless, respect, I can't be on that level of knowing how somebody feels in their brain to know if they'll regret it. That's something I will never be able to understand. That's why therapy exists for these individuals. That's why, it's literally specifically it's an actual DSM diagnosable gender dysphoria. It's for these individuals. It's nothing we can do about it but respect how they feel and let the actual professionals.
Well, the
deal with
thing
that.
is, though, if imagine, for example, that
Yeah.
I was an individual who identified as the opposite gender,
Yes.
and everyone around me, I asked to respect my pronouns and address me as the opposite
Yeah.
sex. The ironic thing is, by their coalescence
Yeah.
to affirming my delusion, is
Yeah.
it actually makes it makes it harder for me to later admit I was wrong.
It's
Because
true.
now, if later I admit I was wrong, I got to admit I was wrong to everyone who I
Mhm.
just asked to lie to me for the last 10
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these individuals, they might be stuck in what's called the Oedipus trap, where they've made a decision that's so drastic, possibly damaging, that they can't bring themselves to admit that they were wrong. And that becomes especially difficult when everyone around you, you've asked to affirm that delusion for so long.
Yeah. And again, okay, understood. And yeah, I'm sure that's true, but it's very easy to, say these things. But then I don't know. It's very easy to say these things, say, yes, this is a bad thing that happens, but relevantly speaking, there's so many, relevantly speaking, it's hard to apply these terms used because, when does that actually happen? I'm sure it does happen. I'm sure that's very common to fall in this trap, whatever, Oedipus trap.
Yep.
Use it. Very cool name, actually. And yeah, again, that's another thing that's difficult about being transgender. I guess maybe you're just proving why respect is so important, because literally all these ingrained, innate difficulties was just feeling different. Which, now that I say that, I'm sure you could respond with, oh, well, all these difficulties wouldn't happen if we just never allowed it to be seen, if we never respected it in the very beginning. But I don't know. That's what I think is important about love, and about loving yourself, finding yourself, loving other people, because it is scary. You can change later, and you can regret it. But regardless, it's important to, I don't know, I think it's important to just foster the way you feel and not regret it and not change it. And maybe, okay, yeah, maybe everybody will, it'll be like what you just said. Maybe it'll be horrible. But that's the scary thing about being respectful and like loving people is that, yeah, there's always the ability that it turns bad, like you just said. But there's also always the ability that investing in this love, investing in other people, turns out good. And they truly do find themselves, and they truly are, respected, changed, feeling at home with people around them, feeling actually respected. And that is why I think it's important to invest in calling people, the pronouns they feel like, respecting people how they feel, because, yeah, the investment can turn out bad, or the investment can turn out good. And I mean, good love is always great, I think. And okay, yeah, bad things happen, but regardless, this baseline, I think respect is important. This believing what people feel is important. And I mean, bad things happen to everybody. I don't know. That's why therapy
Okay.
exists, maybe.
You want to go to another topic or no?
I do want to go to another topic, but I also have to go to class.
Okay, no worries. Hey, it was great talking to you.
It was great. Oh, yeah, here. Sorry, I'll shake your
You're
hand.
good.
It was really great. I would do more, I swear. But,
Okay, hey, if I'm back later and you want to do another topic, feel free to stop by.